Hello, friend. I cannot wait for you to hear this interview with Anne. It was just amazing to hear her story of everything that she's just been through in life, from losing everything financially through taking care of her husband while he was sick and doing the dang thing and starting her online business and going to grad school at the age of 51. Just such an inspiring story and really a testament to the amazingness of the human spirit. So before we get to the interview, a little bit about Anne. Anne is a ASHA certified speech language pathologist with a master's of science degree in speech language pathology from Nova Southeastern University. She's an award-winning blogger and international speaker. She's worked as a speech therapist for a Title I school for the past 16 years. She's currently the Assistive Technology Lead, serving 19 schools in Phoenix, and is passionate about AAC. She loves the challenge of finding the best communication support system for her students. Okay, I'm not going to keep you from this. Let's get to the interview with Anne. Hello, Anne. How are you doing today?
I am great. I'm so happy to be here and see you in person, sort of like on cyberspace.
Yeah, person-esque. It's fine. Well, when you reached out to me and we talked about you being on the podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in all of my fangirl feels. I just need a second. Literally, so everybody listening, I was telling Anne before we started recording how long ago, whenever I was still working in another practice, I had a little boy with an AAC device, and her resources are things that I used. So just if you hear me stutter a little, you know why. Everybody listen. But super excited to have you here. And quite frankly, I cannot wait for everyone to hear your story. So for everyone listening, I've gotten little like peeks and tidbits about Anne's story to getting where she is now with having her own business. And I just can't wait to hear the rest of it. Like, it's kind of like when you start watching a show and you're like, oh my gosh, like I want to know everything else about those people. That's how I feel about Anne right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the ball back to you, Anne, and I'll start with my sort of like typical introduction question for the show. And I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. So tell us, Anne, what makes you and your SLP journey unique? And you can start from the beginning, middle, or end, wherever you see fit.
I would say for sure it would be a combination of my age and the age that I got started and kind of the path that got me here. It's been a very convoluted journey for sure. So I guess I would start with the fact that I really don't believe you're ever too old. And I did not go back to get my master's degree until I was 51. I hope nobody out here is like really good at math, because I don't want you guys to be figuring out my age. But I went back to school at 51, and I had gotten my undergrad degree a long time ago from NAU here in Arizona. And then I came to the point where I knew that I needed a career that would support me. And that was because I was married and my husband had become seriously ill. And I knew, and he wasn't going to be able to make money anymore. And he had been the breadwinner. So I knew that I had to figure out something fast. And so that kind of took me back to, I had my degree that I hadn't used for many years. I had gone into marketing. I was a shopping center director marketing director here in Arizona. And then I met my sweet first husband, Brian, here. And then we got married and moved to Canada because he was Canadian. So we moved to Canada and lived there for 18 years. And during that time, I still did marketing. And then towards the end of that time, I started thinking that I wanted to do something that I really felt like I was making a difference in someone's life. Which is not to say you can't do that with marketing, but I didn't feel like I was doing that. And so I thought, well, maybe I could do something with my speech therapy degree. And so I went to a school and said, hey, I would really like to work as a speech therapist. And they're like, okay, what's your experience? And I'm like, I don't have any, but I have this nice shiny degree that I never used. And so then they were like, yeah, we can't, you need to get experience first. And so I kept my other job. And then I went and volunteered as a paraprofessional in a kindergarten for free, because that's the volunteering part, for a year so that I could get some experience. So then I went back and said, hey, now can I get a job? And they said, you can apply. And so I got a job as an SLPA working in Canada until I moved back here. And then kind of went into the whole thing of deciding to get my master's degree. But kind of backing up on that, on the money part of it. So I had gotten a student loan for my bachelor's degree, but then I had a lot of scholarships and grants and was able to get through with just a really small student loan, which I had paid off. But during the time that I was in Canada, right before we moved to Canada, my husband, who was then my fiance, had declared bankruptcy. So we were going with zero money. And then we kind of built things back up. And this sounds like a bad movie, but this really happened. So we built everything kind of back up where we were like making decent income again. And he had a business and a job, and he got arrested and wrongly accused of a crime. And so we used all of our money that we had saved up again, we had to use for lawyers' fees. And he, of course, did not do it. Was the crime was theft. And he didn't do it, of course, but it took all that money to get him cleared. So there we were starting all over again. And
how old were you at this point when y'all had to start over? You started over again.
Again, I was probably 40, I think, maybe late 30s, early 40s. And then we did it again and had like Brian had a really good income. And then I was doing my SLPA thing. And then that was when I kind of started, I had a little side business on selling stuff on eBay and was making like, okay money on that, nothing exciting. And then that was when I knew that something was wrong with Brian and that he was starting to get sick. And I said, why don't we move back to Arizona? Because that had kind of always been our plan. And I wanted to get him back here before it wasn't really an option anymore. And so we came back here and I got a job, like just because we needed to get by. So I got a job working as a receptionist for my sister's firm so that I could get insurance for us. So we both had insurance. I got a job as a receptionist, which didn't pay very much at all. And I was grateful for it, but it still wasn't enough money. And then we cleaned houses too on the side. And then once he got his diagnosis, he ended up having Lewy body dementia. So he was young. He had Lewy body dementia from a car accident that he had before he met me. And so I knew that the prognosis for that was not good at all. And it was completely heartbreaking. So I was dealing with that and then thinking, oh my God, how am I going to take care of him? Like I can't pay medical bills and take care of him on a receptionist salary. And so then I started looking at jobs and I thought, what's my best option? And I was looking at marketing jobs. And then I saw this ad that said SLPs wanted work with a bachelor's degree. And I was like, what? So then I I looked at that, I applied for that, and it was because we had such a shortage here in Arizona at that time that we were able to get like an emergency license, and it was called SLP limited license. So I got that, and then I was able to work in a district. It's actually the district that I still work in. I was working for a contract company, and so I was doing that and taking care of my husband. And then as he got sicker, then I thought, okay, I'm still not making that much money. I need to make more. And I also thought, like, this is like a temporary thing. So pretty soon they're going to have enough speech therapists, and I'm going to need a master's degree if I want to keep this job. And so then I was 51, my husband was dying, and I applied for graduate school, and I didn't have any money to pay for it either. So I did it, and I applied and got in at Nova Southeastern University out of Florida, and got in on their online program, and was able to get my degree. I worked full-time. And I worked full-time at the speech therapy job, and then I took my courses at night, and I took care of Brian, and I worked on my grief. And he actually passed away while I was still in school. And I do want to say that the faculty at Nova was amazing in helping me. I kept going. I did keep going through school because I needed it. I needed something to focus on. So I guess I'm telling you all that just like not to feel sorry for me in any way, but just to say that people can do hard things when they have to, and if they want it enough, and yeah, you're never too old.
Wow, like I think that's just such a good testament to just the resiliency of the human spirit, like, and how it truly does amaze me, like SLP stuff aside, just how much us as a species can take and still keep going. And I think that story is just like the perfect example of that.
Yeah, it's amazing what you do when you maybe you can do things that you didn't think you could do. I guess that's what I want to say. And especially if you believe that they're important, and if you have somebody relying on you, then you just find a way, and you get people to support you, like emotionally, for sure. It's like not something that you can do alone.
I think it's a testament to like a lot of us in this field really like to have our ducks in a row, really like to have, especially in things like with money or business or whatever it is, people like, okay, I like to be all prepared and then I'll go. But I feel like, sometimes, and again, your story is the perfect example of like, sometimes like you just have to figure it out. Or when you're, life happens, and it's really amazing what you can do, even when you're not prepared at all, and what you can accomplish.
For sure. I mean, I was totally flying by the seat of my pants that whole time. And I guess you could say, really, we lost everything again. So that was the third time, because I had to eventually, Brian was so sick that I couldn't keep him at home anymore. I had to get care for him, and it's really expensive, and insurance doesn't cover it. And so I had like my regular expenses, and then I was having to try to figure out where to get $3,000 extra a month to pay for his care. And so I was up against the wall I got to one point where I had I didn't steal, but I begged and I borrowed everything that I could. And there was no place else to go and I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I have no idea. And then something came through. I had the idea that I could borrow against his life insurance policy with a friend, and it worked out that I was able to take care of him until his last.
So how, if you don't mind me asking, like, how long was a period of just that? I mean, I don't want to, like, that struggle period where you're in school, you're trying to take care of him and provide for him. Like, how long was that season for you?
It was really long. It was like, I believe he was sick for 6 years, and I went to school for 4.5 years, I think, because I had to take I couldn't go full time. I could take like 2 classes a semester, and then I did the summer too, but I had to take a couple of classes. They didn't feel like, they thought because my degree was so, I had gotten it so long ago that I needed to retake a couple of classes, which I contested. And because I'm like, learning some of the things like hadn't changed. So I was able to not have to take some of them over again, but a couple of them I did. So that kind of extended the time. So it was a long, hard road. And I would say that coming out of it, when you have been through something so difficult, then when you are in a good spot, you really, really learn how to appreciate it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm in a good spot now. So I'm just going to appreciate it while it lasts.
I'm just going to be happy. Well, and I think, and I asked you, I don't know if you felt that was a weird question. I asked you like how long that season was, because I think, and I want to get to this topic with you, just like how a lot of these things that you're doing, these things that you're so successful at, like you didn't start until you were in your 40s or your 50s. And I think, the amount of time that you went through that season with your husband being sick and taking care of him, like that's how long I've been out of school. Like that's how long I've been a speech pathologist. Like, cause I think, I graduated in 2016. What year are we? 2022. Okay. 6 years. My math is right. I'm not that great at math. And so I think that's just a testament to how you have, we all have these like seasons of life, right? And there, I mean, for you, like that was a challenging season, a very defining season for you too. Like, I'm sure you learned a heck of a lot about yourself just facing all of that. But I think that's important for a lot of us as listeners and listening to that story to recognize that too, that like there are seasons. And sometimes I think we feel so trapped in whatever's happening, like right now and whatever is happening, even this year or even next 2 or 3 years. But it's encouraging to know that like those don't necessarily have to define your life as a whole.
Yeah, no, exactly. And for sure, if you're fortunate, then you learn from it and you take lessons from it, and it makes you who you are, for sure. And it's like what I would say to myself, or what my mom would tell me, is this too shall pass. That was one of my dad's favorite sayings. And I a lot. And when I felt like I was not going to be able to make it through the day, I would like just cut the time down and be like, can I make it through the next like 5 minutes? And then I was like, okay, yes, I can. And so sometimes it had to be like that. Yeah. But I mean, you can make it through really hard things. Cause I remember when I first found out like, how serious it was. And I was talking to my mom, and, I told her, and I was just crying, and she's like, I'm sorry I brought it up, and I'm sorry. Cause we're on a plane, and I'm crying. And, I said, no, I'm glad you did. And I said, how am I going to, I don't want to be in a world without him in it, Mom. How am I going to do it? And she said, you will do it, because you have to do it. And you don't have a choice. And so those were like some of the words that kind of got me through.
And tell us a little bit, you went through this like 7 year season. And at that, by the end of that time, what you were in like your late 40s at that time, or?
No, I was probably in my 50s.
In your 50s. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you went back to school at 51. You're right.
Yeah.
So tell us, like, when you got out of grad school, like, tell us a little bit from like then till now, because you've done a lot since then. You've started these amazing things. You're teaching, you have online courses, you have a membership program, you have a very active and successful social media platform. So like, tell us, like, how the heck did that happen, Anne? Like, seriously, I'm ready to have my mind blown. I'm bracing myself.
I think it was, I'm trying to think like timeline wise, but I think it was like in 2012. Yeah. So I hadn't quite graduated and got my master's degree yet. But Brian passed away in 2011. And I was watching like bloggers. And so I was like, I kind of want to do that. That looks like fun. I want to have a blog. So I started a blog. I had no idea how to do that, but I figured it out and started this like little blog and was just like writing about being a school-based SLP. And then I hadn't even heard of Teachers Pay Teachers yet. And somebody told me about Teachers Pay Teachers. And I was like, what is that? And so then I was looking at that at the Teachers Pay Teachers site and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I was looking at all the different products. And then I thought, well, I bet I could do that. And so then I had to figure out, I didn't not know PowerPoint then. I didn't know anything. But I did have good design sense because I was an artist in my former life. I guess you're kind of always an artist, but I had, before I got my speech degree, I took a lot of classes in art. That was going to be my major. And I was actually an exhibiting artist for a while when I was in Canada. So anyway, I thought this would be a great way for me to express that side of myself. And so I started learning how to do that and started like really small, just a couple products, and didn't really take it all that seriously. And then Instagram came along and I was like, whoa, I love this platform. And so I started doing things on Instagram, and then those all kind of started coming together. And I went to a Teachers Pay Teachers conference, and that was probably like 8 years ago, and learned how to do more things, met up with some other TPT sellers, and then started networking. And I would just see stuff and be like, whoa, that looks really cool. I want to do that. And then I would teach myself how to do it. And then I did start taking some online courses on business and on online business so that I could understand it more. And then started taking TPT more seriously and making more products. And then when was it? I think it's 4 years ago that I started AAC Academy. So, and I was like really scared to do it. So I probably started thinking about it in 2016. And I was like, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could have a little online course or a membership. And then I had to overcome a lot of fear because I was thinking, well, I'm not good on video. I don't know how to do this. Who am I to be telling other people how to do this? I'm not a professor. Are people going to laugh at me? All the things that we tell ourselves when we're trying to do something that's scary. And so it took me a couple years to get to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And so I launched it, and it's not, you know how you say like about having your ducks in a row? My ducks were not in a row. My ducks were all over the pond. So I was like, I thought, okay, if I just have like one module ready for them, and then I can write the other one I can write the next month's content during the first month. And so that was kind of how I did the first year. And it worked out great. It actually worked out really well. And so then it's just kind of taken off from there, where I just keep thinking, okay, how can I help people? Because I guess I should say, like, the reason that I started doing that, besides the creative part of it, was I started thinking, okay, I'm not 20, so I'm not going to be able to do this for 60 years unless I discover the fountain of youth. And so I've learned all of these things I've learned, like, through my master's degree and through working in a Title I school for all these years, and working with these different kids. Like, I know things that can help other people. Like, I don't want to just sit on them. I want to share them. And so that was kind of what got me going on the course part. I love the population that I work with. I love the kids with complex communication needs, the kids that are autistic, the kids with Down syndrome. And I see that they get forgotten a lot. Like, not forgotten, they're taken care of, but they are allowed to not participate fully. And if I can help, I thought, well, I can help the kids I'm with, but I'm never going to be able to help all the kids. But if I help the speech therapists that work with them, and the parents and the teachers, then I can kind of like broaden the ripple effect. And so that was kind of the big motivation for that.
And I love how, like, the motivation was, and I think, who was it that okay, when I had Hallie Balkin on the podcast, I think that was what she talked about, was like, for her, it was more like oral motor, tongue tie, myofunctional therapy type stuff. But she was basically like, if I can't serve every patient. And she was like, even in, for her case in particular, she has a private practice. She was like, even within my private practice, we cannot serve every patient, but I can help so many more people by creating a course to help them go help other people and help them help patients. And I love how, like, that's the motivation behind like the things that you're creating. Cause I think that people need to hear that from creators in this SLP space, like from the creators, from the influencers, that like a lot of these things are made with like so much love and so much time and so much intention.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to say too, that being said, I'm not doing it for free. And I think that was a thing, like, when I started, that there was like a thing of, well, if you're like, so wanting to help people, you should do it for free. And then I thought, well, no, I shouldn't, because I paid a lot of money to get my skills. Like, I'm still, that's a whole nother subject, still paying my student loan for getting my master's degree. And I went to a lot of courses, and to learn what I have learned business-wise, and like all the CEUs that I've taken and continue to take. Why would you give that away for free? It's like showing that you don't really value it. And so I don't go to that school of thought where we need to be giving things away for free. I want to give back for sure. And I do give a lot of free information, and I'm happy to do it, but I also charge.
Yes, 100%. And I think and I've had this discussion on multiple things. I think I did a IG live with Jenna from Independent Clinician, and that was something we talked about, was value and perceived value. And how, and in that particular example, we were talking about not charging enough for your like private practice services. But I feel this is the same thing, this idea of what we do and our information and our skills are valuable. Like, they're valuable in the marketplace, like not even outside of like the feel goods helping the kids thing. I love the feel goods helping the kids thing. That's great. But we're going to do that. But just the idea of like, what is your value in the marketplace? And I really, it's like a female field dominated thing, a helping field thing, a healthcare field thing, of this idea that like putting value on yourself and your skills is somehow wrong. But literally no other industry does that. My husband works in heating and air. And so prices of, I mean, we're recording this right now in March of 2022. The prices for consumer goods have gone up. I mean, we're at 7.6% or we got 7.9% now for inflation. The cost of all of his supplies for heating and air and refrigeration has gone up. The cost of the metal, the cost of gas to get their van to the car, get their van to your house, the cost of refrigerant, all of that has gone up. And his company has increased their prices. And do you think they feel bad about it?
No, I don't.
No, they wouldn't. And, you know, whenever someone addresses them saying, well, that's not what I paid last time. It's like, yes, ma'am, but the cost has gone up. Like, and it's a fact. It's not this emotional thing that I find a lot of us like helping professions really get into, which I think makes sense because what we do, we work with communication and we're working with people's lives. We're not working on their AC. We're dealing with people's lives here. Right.
Yes.
But at the same time, you know, we got to make a living and there's no shame in that. And you shouldn't have to feel bad about that. And we shouldn't shame others for that because things cost money. And I think that's another thing people need to recognize. Like for you to run your business, even an online business, it costs money. Like for me to put out this podcast, like it cost me money to put this podcast out. And I think as we get more SLPs, like starting businesses and just understanding the value of service and understanding the value of what we as therapists and also we as teachers bring, I'm hoping to see a lot more acceptance of that. When my hairdresser increased her prices, I said, good for you. Good for you, because you are freaking amazing at messing with my curly hair. So you should increase your prices.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. And it does. And I think people don't realize that it does cost money to run a business. And even like for teachers pay teacher sellers, you have to have a blog. You have to have an email service provider. If you have a course, you have to pay for that platform. You pay for a VA if you're lucky enough to have one. Like all the things add up. And I mean, unless you're independently wealthy and want to be a philanthropist, then you can't give that away for free, and you shouldn't.
Right, 100%. So, and tell us a little bit about, so I know it took you even mentioned it took you a couple of years even to like get up the lady cojones to, that's like my phrase for the lady cojones, to put your online course and everything out there. How did you really combat that? Like, this is something we talked about before we hit the record button, of just like, of you not letting the fact that you were one of like the older people pursuing that, like pursuing online business. Like my mom is 60. I mean, she's still young. But poor thing, like I still have to order stuff on Amazon. Like she is not, she is not going, like the idea of like her like 5 or 10 years ago, learning how to post a course online, like I just can't see it. But the fact that like you still did it. And I really want you to give your advice and encouragement out there to people who are maybe a little bit older in the field and they want to start something. I get DMs a lot from people who are in their 40s and 50s, which is not old, by the way. Like, that's not me saying that old. That ain't old. You're as old as you feel. Yes. And, but just feeling very discouraged because, you know, whether it's for financial independence, you'll see these people on financial independence, you know, I retired at 35. And if you're 45 looking at that, you're like, well, what's even the point if I can't do that? Or even looking at things and being intimidated. But, you know, all these, actually I had a one-on-one a while back where I think she was like 40. So still super young, but felt like Instagram just was only for the 20-year-olds. And I was like, no, boo, get out there and do it. So do you have any like words of encouragement for them, or even any like specific stories in your journey that you feel would be a good lesson or encouragement to them?
Well, I think like with the age thing, it's you can't let that be a thing. I think 60 now is not what 60 was 50 years ago, and neither is 40 or 50 or any of the ages. Like with the changes in healthcare, or not healthcare, but in what we know about longevity, then people are living longer, healthier lives. And so you don't have to think, okay, I'm done at a certain age. And you don't have to think, okay, I think we're kind of rethinking what retirement is too. Like you used to think, okay, I'm going to retire at a certain age, and then I'm going to like go play golf and wear ugly clothes and get a helmet haircut and bake cookies for the grandkids. That's just not the case anymore, or it doesn't have to be. I think like sometimes in terms of appearance, like people think, well, okay, I don't have to like try so hard anymore. That's a personal decision, like whatever you want that makes you feel good. But I don't think we have to buy into that at all. And I think if you do some research, some of the really famous people, like inventors, and I can't think of any names right now, but they didn't even start coming into their own until they were in their 50s. So it's like to think that we need to be everything and only in our 20s is crazy, or even just only in our 30s. It's not healthy, and it's not possible. I mean, we have all this other life to live. So I really haven't, like, I have my moments, of course, where I'm like, oh God, I need a filter. I got to back up. But I'm like, that's not what people follow you for. People like on Instagram are following you for this is what I want anyway. People that follow me for a connection, they follow me because either I entertain them or I educate them. And it's just for the connection. So bottom line, it matters more what's inside of you and what you have to offer. So I don't think that people need to really worry about that. And then in terms of learning new things, I mean, we always need to learn new things. That's what keeps our brain fresh and healthy. And for me, like learning the technology, I am not a child of technology. I mean, I had to learn like the hard way. I never took a course in computers or any of that, but I just figured it out. Like I asked questions, and then once Google came along, I mean, you Google things, and you have to be scrappy. You got to be a little scrappy and be like, okay. I think not expect things to be handed to you because they rarely are. And so if you want to learn how to do something, then figure out different ways, ask people. People are a lot of times really willing to share their knowledge. And then in terms of, I'm trying to think if there's any stories, but I mean, nobody's ever told me I'm too old for something. Maybe they think it, but I haven't ever heard them say it.
Like I'm curious, how long did it take for you to feel comfortable with the online space? Because I mean, you've been on Instagram for a while, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think I didn't look, I can usually tell by like the number of posts people have, right? Like if you've got like 1,000 posts, you've been on Instagram for a while.
Oh yeah, I think at least 10 years.
10 years. Okay. So you've been around the block for Instagram.
Yeah.
So like how long did it take for you to really feel comfortable with the technology piece?
Oh, it wasn't not that long, because Instagram's pretty user friendly. Mm-hmm. And then I just, you just have to be willing to do it and to not do it perfect. So I had to overcome my perfectionism. And, that's an ongoing battle. And then you just have to keep up with it because it's not a one and done, especially with technology. You have to, Instagram changes all the time. They're always changing their algorithm and what's available. And so if you want to play the game, then you have to keep up on that part. I will say that for me to be comfortable on video was a process for sure. So I had taken B School, which is Marie Forleo's online business school. And I think I took that about probably 8 years ago. And it was a big investment for me, but I thought, you know, I need to learn a little bit more about what I'm doing. And they kind of pair you up with a person that's going through it too. And you can talk to each other. So the gal that was mine was her whole course that she was going to do was videos. So she was going to be making all these videos and she was really good at it. And so then I told her, I'm like, I'm going to have to just do a written course. I just can't even do the videos. I don't like the way I look on camera. I think I'm just like so awkward. I don't like the way I sound. And she was like, yeah, you're going to have to get over that. Like, you just have to do it. And she said, you're thinking too much about it. Like, you look fine. So like, just start getting used to it. And so for a whole summer, I took my cell phone and did a little selfie video of myself and deleted it. But just so that I could have the experience of trying it, looking at it, give myself some feedback that wasn't like super negative, like something helpful, like, well, maybe if you back up a little bit, or maybe if you have better lighting, or maybe if you relax a little bit, all of those kind of things. And then it worked. Then eventually it's just like anything, you learn more about it. You kind of like get over yourself a little bit. And I don't know. I mean, I still see videos of myself where I'm like, oh, well. But other ones I'm like, okay, well, that looks like you. It's good. It's fine.
And just working that muscle of like, and actually even, I typed that down in my notes. I said, you have to be willing to do it and not do it perfect. And you also have to be willing to keep doing it. Yeah. And for everyone out there, so you didn't start doing like you didn't start doing any of your like business stuff until you were in your 50s, right?
Correct.
So anyone out there who's like messaging me like, Danni, like, I think it's too late, blah, 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 girlfriend or boyfriend, mostly girlfriend, because we're mostly women. It just is what it is. Like, and you're freaking killing it. So tell us a little bit about like, what are you doing now? Like, for people who maybe aren't following you, or maybe they aren't as familiar with you, like what's up in Anne's life right now? Like business, SLP, life in general?
Well, I'm having a lot of fun. Sorry about this bruise on my face. Nobody popped me. This was self-induced.
Oh, I didn't notice it. I did not even notice it.
So I've been having a lot of fun with Reels on Instagram as a way to teach people, like using relatable humor, I think is really good. And it's just a way to get information out there that people really like. And people will tell me, you know, I saved my reel, or I sent it to my friend, or I sent it to like one of the parents of the kids that I work with. So that's been really fun doing that piece. And I have my AAC Academy, which I used to open, like it would be closed part of the year and then open it up to new people. Now it's open all the time, so people can join whenever they want to. And it's a really great way for people to get like the basics on AAC. I still find that there are a lot of people that struggle with AAC because as a rule, most people still aren't getting a lot of exposure to it in grad school. And so then all of a sudden you'll get somebody on your caseload, or you'll go to a school and get a new assignment and you get a whole classroom of kids that need AAC. And so people just scramble and struggle because of course they want to do their best with that. And so that's what the the courses for, that you can kind of learn some of those basics. And I have some resources in there, and you have access to me so that you can ask me questions about specific kids. When I started here in Phoenix and I was working on that limited license, of course, I got 2 classrooms with kids with functional skills. That's what we call them here in Arizona, like a functional skills classroom. So these are kids that are not working really on academics, but they're working on life skills. And there were kids that had these clunky AAC devices, and there were kids that really needed them. And I had like zero support for figuring out how to help them. So I made so many mistakes that I think have turned out to be super helpful now, because I can understand when other people make them, and just like, talk about it. So that's a big thing that I do. And then I'm really proud of myself. I'm very consistent for anybody that's on my email list, that I have been, I try to send out like really good motivational emails every week. And so I've been good at that for like the last 2 years. I do find that in online business, consistency is key, super important. And sometimes it's easy to not be consistent. And then during the pandemic, I got really into making boom cards, the boom learning cards, and I love them. So I'm still making them, and I use them with my students in person, but they're great for teletherapy too. But I really love the interactive piece of them. And I like to use them not as a use alone activity, like not where, like, I know sometimes like when teachers are using boom cards, they'll have them as a center and the kids can use them and they keep track. In therapy, I don't use them that way. I use them, I'm sitting right there with the kiddos and we are interacting and talking about them. And I made a whole bunch of them that have AAC core vocabulary words on them. So that's really fun. I'm always making new stuff for Teachers Pay Teachers, just because it's so much fun.
Yeah, like it sounds like you found something that you like. And I think that's so important for those, because like sometimes a lot of people message me and they're just like, I know I want to do something, I just don't know what it is. I really think, everyone listening, like go listen to Anne and even go back in past episodes. You notice every time like these creators talk about what they do, they love doing it and like finding something you enjoy. Like honestly, the idea of creating stuff on TPT or boom cards, I'd rather look at cactus. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm so glad that there are people like you out there because that is like so not enjoyable for me. I do not have the eye for it at all. Like I'm the worst designer ever. I paid someone to help me decorate my house and pick my paint colors because I had no idea. But I think that's important. Like I had a conversation with someone and they were like, I'm gonna make a TPT store. And I'm like, okay, but do you want to make one? No. That's what everybody else is doing. I'm like, yeah, but you need to find something that you really enjoy. Like, and it even sounds like you really enjoy doing, because you have your AAC Academy, which is like a standalone course. And then you have like a membership that you do too, right?
Yeah. The Academy is the membership. And then I have AAC Jumpstart, which is really, I made that so AAC Academy kind of like progresses you through the steps, like of building this AAC foundation and then, just building on it. So AAC Jumpstart is really like getting the first 6 modules of AAC Academy, but just all together in a course. Because I found that there were some that would prefer to do it that way and not have the membership. So I wanted to have a little something for everybody.
Yeah. And you've created these other income streams for yourself because you're still working full time, like doing traditional therapy, right?
Yep.
Okay. And you're working in a school system, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm working in a school system. I'm the Assistive Technology Lead for the Roosevelt School District here in Phoenix.
Oh, that sounds fancy, y'all.
Isn't it? Don't believe me, it's not.
It's like we all get like Well, I work in early intervention, so like I have like snot and stuff. Like, girl, you may be able to understand this. I saw this really cute Speech Pathology sweatshirt, and it was white, and I was like, oh, that. I'm gonna get boogers and pureed sweet potato on it.
Yep. Yep.
And so you've kind of created these multiple streams of income for yourself. And I'd really like to get your perspective on, as someone who you essentially lost everything financially twice, right? Like, not only did you go through kind of like these traumatic things emotionally, but you also lost everything twice financially and had to come back from that. As someone who's you've got multiple streams of income. Everybody, if you're a listener to the show, you know how great multiple streams of income are. Not only does it increase your income, but it also decreases your risk, right? That way, if something happens to one stream, you always have another one to rely on. But just give us your like wisdom, I guess, or like how you feel about this idea of multiple streams of income, especially having lost everything financially in your past as well. I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it's like, I wish I would have done it sooner. I think it's super important. And I think too, for like younger listeners, I would say like, don't go with the princess mentality and think that you're going to have a prince that's going to save you and you'll have their income, because stuff happens. And so you're better off to be able to always take care of yourself too. And so the multiple streams thing is that, so then if you have one thing, like if you have an industry that changes, or you have something that dries up, or God forbid you lose your job, at least you've got something else where you've got some money coming in. And so for me, ideally, I would like to have a few more streams. And I do wish I would have started sooner, but that was not in the cards for the way that, that my life played out so far. But I'm not giving up. I'm not like, oh no, I can't do I saw your cool little chart that you put, like if you were a smart SLP and you put away this much every so often, then you'd like have $1 million. Well, I would have to live to be like really old, like 150, but that doesn't mean I can't like keep making more money. You never know. Like maybe I'll start investing in NFTs and make $1 trillion like the 20-year-olds. But in the meantime, having all these like different streams of income it's just smart. Like you don't like the old saying of my dad used to say, like, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So why not have a bunch of different baskets with like some apples and some oranges too? And so I am still like looking at adding in a few more streams. I think it would be great. Like right now I have my actual job. I have the courses, I have TPT and Boom Learning. And then now, like because of Instagram, different bonuses and sponsorships open up, or you can make money as a speaker and get different speaking things. So it's just like being open and looking at what's available. And then, like you said, like, don't just do it because everybody else is doing it. Don't do it if it's going to make you miserable. Like find the stuff that you like to do. And then it's not drudgery. I mean, sometimes it is like there's always aspects of everything that's drudgery, like bookkeeping, for example. But as long as like you get those pockets of, wow, this is really fun, then I think you're on the right track.
And I love that. Did you say bookkeeping? Because I was complaining about bookkeeping this morning in my stories.
I actually hired a bookkeeper. I'm like, I can't even, I'm so bad at this.
Yeah. Like, and that like, totally understand that 100%. This was the first time in my 2 years that I was like, I kind of wish I had a bookkeeper. Like this was the first time that I was like, oh, but I think it's that. And I refer to this all the time, but it's just so true. But I love that there's a Steve Harvey thing going around. I think it's a reel or a TikTok or whatever. And he just talks about like pick your hard. Like nothing's gonna just be easy. Okay. Like not saying like you're doomed to suffer forever in this world and fiery pit or whatever. But like there's always gonna be days that are hard, but choose your hard, right? You can choose the hard of living paycheck to paycheck and being miserable at a job, or you can choose the hard maybe it's running your own business, maybe it's not, not everybody's meant to have business. You do you, boo. But choose what your hard is going to be, because it also makes those times when things are hard a lot easier to be able to get through. Not saying they're never going to come, but easier to get through.
Yeah, I completely agree, because you when you have gone through something really difficult, it does give you tools to, it's kind of like they're talking right now. I keep hearing about like the doing the cold showers, like the cryotherapy, like you jump in the bucket of cold water and it helps you combat anxiety, and because you learn gradually to be more comfortable with discomfort. So I kind of feel like you said, you choose your hard. So I chose like to do an online business. And are there times when I'm like super uncomfortable? Yeah. And are there times where I don't know what I'm doing? Yeah. And are there times when I get like really frustrated? Yes. And I think, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah, I do. I think all of that, but then you work your way through it. And it's still right now, the way things are right now is still worth it.
Right. And just being grateful for those things. And especially just, again, having been through everything that you've been through, like, I'm sure, like, how do you feel that's changed your perspective on the blessings that you have now? Like, how do you feel that's changed you and changed your perspective?
I'm so appreciative of what I have now. I've remarried and was, so fortunate to be able to find love twice. And so I do very much appreciate what I have now. I do not take my health for granted. I don't take my people for granted. It's like, it's the whole, this too shall pass. That applies to the good stuff too. And I don't mean that in a morbid way. It's like when you're trying to get through something really difficult, you tell yourself this too will pass. When you're in a really good patch, you remind yourself to appreciate it by saying this too will pass.
And I think that goes back to like there's just, and I feel like that's hard for people who are like in their 20s to understand, which, I mean, technically, what's today's date? I will be in my 20s for like 20 more days. I turn 30 next month, April 21st. But I find like that's something, even as I'm like about to turn 30, I'm realizing that, like, I feel like it's hard to have that perspective and understand that there's just seasons, and you go through seasons when you're in those like early 20s and things like that, because you've only ever had a few seasons, right? But I feel like your perspective changes, even for me, like as like I'm turning 30 next week, I'm like, wow, like this season that we're in right now, like this is not how it was 2 or 3 years ago. Like that was a season, and before that was a different season, and before that was a different season. And I just, that's always like it's almost kind of like your perspective. You learn to zoom out a little bit and recognize, and as opposed to being stuck in this like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, gloom and doom, blah, 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 blah. Even, sometimes situations are terrible, but recognizing, like, just like you said, like this too shall pass, whatever it is. And that's like one thing that has just blown my mind. Like, as I reflect, in my old age, as I reflect on life, that's something that's really blown my mind, is like realizing like, this is just, it's seasons. Everything comes in seasons.
Yeah. And as you've been around for a while, you learn to, you do really learn to appreciate the people that you have while you have them, because, and I know this probably sounds morbid too, but everybody's not going to be around forever. So don't take people for granted, enjoy them, and tell them, I know this sounds cheesy, but like tell them that how you feel about them while they're here. Like tell them that you love them while you're here.
That's not cheesy at all. We need to hear that, because you think that you're going to have, I think that just goes back to like, enjoy your freaking life, people. Like if the situation that you're in is miserable right now, like what are the things that you can do to potentially change that situation? Because I mean, life is short. It really is. And prioritizing, like spending your time being with the people that you love, because they may not be there. Like I thought I would have many more years with my dad, and I didn't. And so it just really makes you think. It really, really makes you think about that stuff. And it's unfortunate that it takes things like that happening in our lives to make us appreciate those things. So I guess this is just like a reminder to everybody listening out there.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think the other thing is, I was thinking about this quite a bit today, that you have like it. I think like one of the secrets to happiness is not thinking that one big thing is it, and that's what's going to make you happy. Like when I make like $200,000 a year, then I'll be happy. Or when I lose 20 pounds, then I'll be happy. Or when I meet the man of my dreams, then I'll be happy. It's more if you could focus on those little happy moments, like when, like, so for example, for me yesterday, I have this kiddo that is autistic and non-speaking. And I've been working with her for a really long time. And I really don't know if she likes me or not, because she doesn't show a lot of emotion. And so I was doing yoga with the kids and co-treating with the physical therapist. And so I was sitting next to her. She had her device out. I was modeling. And then I was like, I didn't have any big expectations of her, like, really using the device all that much, just like, so I could model and facilitate. And then it was at the end, and it was time for everybody to lay down, and we were going to do ocean breathing. And so she lays down, and usually I don't lay down with them. I sit up so I can watch and make sure, like, if anybody's acting up. And then, but I did this time, and I laid down, and I looked over, and her eyes were open, and she looked at me, and we just had this moment, like, where I felt like we just connected. I don't think she's ever like looked at me before. So she was looking at me and I was looking at her, and the playing field was leveled because I'm on the same level as her. And then she, like, our hands touched, and then I was like, and then it was over, but I was like, okay, like that just filled my heart. And so that's like a little moment of happiness. And if you add that with, like, me coming home and seeing my dog and her being so happy, and you add all those little pieces together from your day. And I think that is happiness. Like all those little things, you put those together, and that's where your happiness lies.
Yes. Happiness is not a goalpost, because I promise you, it's going to keep moving. Happiness, you think, oh, when I get my grad degree, I'll be happy then. I'll be content then. Okay. Now when I get my first job. Okay. Now when I make this amount of money. Okay, good. Now when I get married. Okay, good. Now when I have a baby. Okay, good. Right? I see that, like, I see that all the time, Anne, like this, like, it's almost kind of like distracting yourself with the next thing. Mm-hmm. So that so it gives you something to look forward to, since you're not happy with the current situation that you're in. Like, oh, I can be excited for the next thing. I think that, a great example is like people that, they'll get married and then divorce 2 months later, because the hype of the wedding is over.
Right. Yeah.
It's over. Yeah. That part, that's fun and exciting. I hated planning a wedding. I wanted to elope. But anyways, that part's fun and exciting. And then once that's over, it's like,
what's next?
Yeah. Like, what's next? Like, what do I get to look forward to now? And it's like, if you keep moving that goalpost of what's going to make you happy or what's going to make you content, you're never going to get there. And although, we need to have goals, like we need to be pursuing things. And like I've talked before about, like, I need, like, being patient with, like, we are on track to meet our goals, but sometimes I just get impatient, and learning to just be content, like in the moment with the joys that you have like every day during your day. Like that example was a great example that you just gave.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a constant. I don't know. I guess that's just part of being human, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100. And we have to learn the same lessons over and over again.
Yep.
Always. Always. Well, Anne, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know that you have a million things to do, and I just so much appreciate you taking your time to chat with me. This was such an awesome conversation. Like we got real philosophical in this. Like, right? I feel like a professor would be proud of us. What else? But before I let you go, tell everyone like where they can find you. Like if Instagram, like where can everybody find you?
Yeah, I'm Beautiful Speech Life on Instagram is the best place to find me. And I have like all the links in my bio, so you can get my freebies, get on my email list. I have a YouTube channel that's Beautiful Speech Life, and I have a blog, Beautiful Speech Life, but Instagram is a great place to start.
Awesome. And all of her links like YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, all of that is going to be included in the show notes. So you can make sure to go and check everything out over there. And thank you so much for coming on. Any last final words that you want to leave all of our listeners with today?
Let me think. Yeah, it's just been a pleasure. I'm so glad that I did this. And I think it would be like, don't let other people set limitations for you. Don't you do what you want to do, and don't believe that you can't because of a number like your age. I think you need to listen to your heart and your inner voice. And here goes my next cliche: where there's a will, there's a way. But it's true. Yeah.
You have the right to all the cliches. you like talk about somebody doing the dang thing. Like, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Anne. It was an absolute pleasure, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Thanks, Danny.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Be sure you are subscribed so you can continue to get more no fluff content from me. And I would really appreciate it if you took a small amount of time to leave a review for the podcast. It really helps to boost it in the search engines and ratings, and it allows me to continue to produce this content for you and get this message out there to other SLPs and healthcare professionals. And as always, happy wealth building, and go do the dang thing.